So in this log, the main question is how can we smooth out the flight? I've looked at the video a little bit, and let's just take a look at the video and see if we can find some examples of the kind of smoothness that we're talking about. Well, the first thing I am going to check, and I'm going to stop doing this with every single one because I think you guys get the gist by now. I have a little bit of worry that somebody's going to come along, 6 months from now and find this thread and watch a video 10 pages in and miss something. But I've started running out of time on the videos, so I need to cut some stuff out. And I don't think we need to look at the gyros and the motors on every single video unless there's a specific question. So I think I'm going to stop doing that. But in this case, when you're talking about twitches and roughness on the axes, it is specifically called for to look at the gyros because that is the kind of thing that excess noise will create. And I'm also starting to wonder whether excess filtering can also create that kind of thing. Whether there's a sweet spot with filtering where you're filtered enough but not too much. I'll continue to explore that. But if we look right here, we can see that these gyro traces, they look pretty good to me. They look pretty much perfect. They don't look suspiciously thin, nor do they look too rough. So I feel like if there is a sweet spot with your gyro filtering, you're probably in it. So there we go. Likewise, if we look at your motor traces don't look too bad. They don't look thick or rough with lots of high frequency stuff. They do look a little jittery here, but bear in mind we're zoomed out to 10%. If we zoom in to 100%, your motor traces smooth right out and look great. So this is an interesting challenge. Let's watch the video and let's see if we can find any examples of what you're talking about. So I watched the video for a little bit, and when I'm looking for roughness or vibrations, what I like to do is I like to watch the edges of the screen, and I feel like it shows up especially well in roll if you're looking right around here, and I think there's less vibration to be seen in pitch, but looking at the top of the screen. And I just don't see anything. It looks really smooth. So this is probably a case where if you and I were looking at it together and you were to say right there, I would eventually be able to see what you're looking for, but I'm afraid I just don't see it. So in general advice, what I would say is that from your flight performance, your PIDs, or at least your Ps and Ds, look pretty spot on. So if you're going to try tweaking out those oscillations, then the thing to do is to play with your soft filters and be running gyro LPF equals 188 and loop time 1000, first of all. So if you're not running, are you running gyro sync? Let's just check what you've got here. This is beta flight. Okay. So you are going to want to be running gyro sync for sure. Sync gyro to loop equals 1. Excellent. And you're going to want to see loop time of 1000. If you are not seeing loop time of 1000, you're going to want to try to get that to occur. And yeah, okay. So one of the things that can cause the kind of roughness in flight that you're talking about is aliasing of noise down into the band of interest. Let me see if I can find you an example of that. So this is a spectrogram plot of my copter, and the y-axis is the frequency, and the x-axis is time, and the color represents the intensity of the signal at that frequency at that time. So hotter colors, yellow and red, are higher intensity, more energy. And we can see that up above about 150 hertz, this is the primary vibration coming off my props and motors. Okay, and we can see this signal down here in the middle frequencies, and that, I've been told, is aliasing of the signal up here caused by undersampling. And the giveaway there is that it is twice the amplitude and inverted. And again, I'm just repeating what I've been told. I still have more studying to do on aliasing. But for example, if we look right here, notice that the frequency there's this V shape here, and right here, let me get that away. Right here, that same shape manifests twice as big but inverted. So aliasing is going to occur whenever we're undersampling. So for example, if the gyro is running at 1 kilohertz and or 1,000 loop time, 1 kilohertz, and we're running at 2,000 loop time, or 500 hertz, we're going to be missing every other sample, and that's will cause this effect. And what that means is that your PID loop will see noise in the signal that isn't really there, and will be trying to respond to that noise, and that can cause the kind of problems that looks like a badly filtered or excessive noise in your copter. So this is why it's so important to sync the gyro to the loop to get the last nth degree of performance out of the copter. This is a very subtle thing that you're probably not going to notice until you're really tuning the heck out of it. But if you're just going for like the ultimate in smooth flight, this is going to be the kind of thing you're going to need to deal with. And you have dealt with it as far as I can tell as best you can, because you've got sync gyro to loop, you've got gyro LPF 188, and you want to see a loop time. So if you're not seeing a loop time of 1,000, then you definitely should figure out what you need to do to get a loop time of 1,000 synced to a gyro of 188. That would cause that aliasing issue to not be there. The other thing you could do is you could just play with your filters, and so you've got gyro cut of 55, p-term cut of 40, and d-term cut of 15. So this is interesting to me because gyro cut 55, p-term cut of 40 it feels like you're trying to filter here like a lot. Gyro cut, you've lowered gyro cut from the default, which I think is 60. So it feels like you're trying to get more filtering out of it, but at the same time your d-term is relatively high. So with a d-term of 15, that to me would be associated with a copter with a gyro cut up around 100, a relatively noise-free copter. Those two are going to roughly be, they're both dealing with the amount of noise in the system. So if one goes down, probably it seems like the other one's going to go down as well. So I think based on the amount of noise I'm seeing, you could stand a raised gyro cut. I'm starting to think that there's a sweet spot where too much filtering causes similar effects to not enough, and may add roughness to your flight. So I think you should probably leave p-term cut where it is. I think that has the least effect overall on the flight performance compared to the other two. Leave d-term cut and try raising gyro cut and see what effect that has on your traces. Your gyro traces, when you're zoomed all out, don't let them get more than perhaps twice as thick as they already are, but see if that produces a smoother flight that you like better. The other thing you had a question about was the quad kind of losing angle during sharp turns. And I think I can see what you're referring to. It kind of looks like it's slipping a little bit and not holding angle sharply. Here's maybe a good example of it. So right there, it's kind of wallowing around a little bit. Let's watch it again. Hunting, if you will. I don't know. I think wallowing around is actually a really good term for it. So what I would say is I think you should try increasing your eye gain on the axis in question. But I have a feeling that actually this is related to the fact that you're using 10-degree tilt motor mounts. And the tilt motor mounts, they have two effects. Well, one effect one effect is that you fly faster straight ahead without tilting down. I mean, that's what your desired effect is. But another effect is that there's a little bit of coupling of yaw into the other axes, and so it tends to make the back end slide out a little bit on turns, which you may be able to compensate a little bit as with your sticks. But the other thing that happens is that the rear motors are flying more in turbulent air from the front motors, because now the front motors are directing more of their prop wash back towards the rear motors, whereas when they're pointed straight down, less of the prop wash is directed toward the back motors. And this may actually factor into the rough flight that you're getting. You're flying through your own prop wash just a little bit, creating rough turbulent air that the loop has to respond to. If that's the case, then increasing your gyro cutoff will potentially help with that, because it will decrease the latency of the loop and make the loop a little more responsive. If your if your gyro traces were already noisy, I wouldn't recommend that, but your gyro traces are really clean, so you can probably afford to reduce latency by increasing your cutoff to a higher number, and that may produce better results. The other thing with the sliding and the slipping, try increasing your I term and see if that fixes it. That's really the only way that's going to get fixed, I think. It doesn't look like you're in a scenario where you have inadequate P term that's causing an issue. Maybe let's just take a closer look here and see what's going on. Let me find the moment where it slips. So right there, we can see you turn in, you cut your nose in to the right, but then your nose slips to the left. Notice here, look what's happening here. Let's figure this out. Your yaw P term goes negative, that's right turn. Now your yaw P term begins, you're turning right fast enough. Your yaw is 0. Now you are turning right too fast and your P term is pushing to the left. The I term is still pushing to the right. And your stick is deflected right, so that I term is correct here, not the P term. P term is pushing to the left. Your yaw gyro crosses the line. Here is where your nose starts to move to the left again. How did that happen? Both your P term and your I term came to be pushing to the left. Why are they pushing to the left? It's very interesting. See, yeah, this is very interesting because your stick is deflected to the right, but both your P term and eventually your I term comes around to agree that the copter is moving right too fast. So I think what we're seeing here is the copter is, as you enter the turn, the rear of the copter begins to slide out because of the motor mounts. The rear of the copter is sliding out, and therefore the flight controller decides that it needs to yaw to the left. When that eventually happens, we get that sort of wallowing effect. Yeah. So let me just reiterate that. This is not a case where you have like inadequate P gain or too much I gain or something, I term wind up. Because at the moment that this issue happens, the I term is actually doing the right thing according to what your sticks are doing. The thing is that both the P term and the I term come to oppose your stick. Your stick is pushing to the right, which corresponds with negative yaw. Both the P term and the I term come to agree that the copter is yawing to the right too fast, and so they come to oppose it. And then we have to ask ourselves and that's why the nose moves to the left and sort of looks like it's sliding out. And we ask ourselves, why is that? And the answer most likely is that the 10-degree motor mounts are making the rear end sort of slip out on yaw. So in this case, if you were to increase your I gain, what you could hope to do, maybe even increase your P gain a little bit, because you could usually use a little more P on yaw, a little better yaw performance. Maybe you could cause it to catch it before the rear end slips out as much, and that would mean that you would get less of a sort of a overshoot and then the nose comes back. It would be more sort of refined. So maybe increase yaw P, maybe increase yaw I a little bit, play around with that. But I think ultimately what you're dealing with is an inherent effect of having the motor mounts, and if you're going to keep them, you're going to sort of be struggling with this. Hope that's helpful, and happy flying.